In the summer of 1281, the most powerful empire on earth sailed toward a small island nation and vanished. Not one soldier, not one ship spared. An armada of over 4,000 vessels, more than 140,000 men, the largest invasion force the world had ever seen, gone in a single night. The Mongol Empire had never lost a war it truly committed to. They had toppled China, they had crushed Korea, they had burned their way from the Pacific to the gates of Europe. But Japan wasn't saved by its samurai, it wasn't saved by its walls, it was saved by something no army on earth could fight back against. And the people of Japan had a name for it. They called it the Divine Wind. By the year 1274, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Sea of Japan to the edges of Eastern Europe. It was, without question, the largest connected land empire in human history. At its head sat Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, and a ruler determined to finish what his grandfather started, total domination of the known world. China had already fallen under his control. Korea had submitted. One by one, kingdoms that resisted the Mongols simply stopped existing. Kublai Khan sent messengers to Japan demanding tribute and submission. Japan's response was silence. No envoy was sent back. No tribute was paid. To the ruler of the largest empire on earth, silence was an insult he would not forgive. In November of 1274, the first invasion fleet launched, somewhere between 500 and 900 ships, carrying up to 40,000 Mongol, Chinese and Korean soldiers. They landed at Hakata Bay on the southern island of Kyushu. What followed was a battle unlike anything Japan had ever experienced. The samurai fought with honor, with tradition. Single combat, one warrior calling out his name before engaging an enemy. The Mongols didn't fight that way. They fought in coordinated ranks. They used gunpowder bombs that exploded with a sound the Japanese had never heard. They used short bows with poisoned arrows fired in overwhelming volleys. For one brutal day, the samurai were pushed back toward the shore. And then, as night fell, the sky changed. Clouds rolled in from the sea, fast and black. The wind began to howl. By morning, the Mongol commanders had no choice but to order a retreat back to the ships. They never made it out to open water in time. A violent storm tore through the anchored fleet. Ships were smashed against each other, against the rocks, against the shore. When the sun rose, nearly a third of the invasion fleet was gone. 13,000 men had drowned in the dark, cold water of Hakata Bay. Japan had survived, but everyone on that coastline knew this was not over.
All is lost.
Kublai Khan did not accept defeat easily. Within a year, he began assembling something unprecedented, the largest naval invasion force ever built. Japan knew he would return.
We will build a wall.
So the shogunate made a decision that would occupy the nation for the next 7 years. They built a wall along the entire coastline of Hakata Bay, nearly 20 kilometers of stacked stone, standing up to 2.5 meters high. Thousands of laborers worked season after season, year after year, racing against a deadline they couldn't see, for an enemy they knew was coming. It was Japan's only real defense against the most feared military force on the planet, and they had no idea if it would be enough. 7 years after the first invasion, Kublai Khan finally struck back. With a force so large, it would remain one of the biggest amphibious invasions in human history for the next 6.5 centuries, until the beaches of Normandy in 1944. 4,400 ships, over 140,000 men, 2 invasion fleets, one launching from Korea, one from southern China, set a rendezvous point off the Japanese coast, converging into a single, overwhelming force. They arrived at Hakata Bay expecting an easy landing.
What is that?
Instead, they found the wall.
We are blocked.
For 7 straight
There is
weeks,
no way
the
through.
largest army on Earth sat offshore in cramped, disease-ridden ships, unable to break through. The wall held. The samurai launched small, relentless
Raiders on the
raids
deck.
by night,
Sound the
striking
alarm.
and retreating
To arms.
before the
We are under
Mongols could
attack.
organize a real
Get them.
counterattack. 7 weeks of stalemate. 7 weeks of tension building on both sides of that narrow stretch of water. And on the Japanese side of the wall, prayers were being said in every temple across the country. Prayers for protection,
seek
prayers for
protection.
deliverance, prayers for
Grant us
a miracle.
deliverance.
Send a
No
miracle.
one could have known just how literally those prayers were about to be answered. On August 15, 1281, the sky over Hakata Bay
wind
began
is
to
too
change
strong.
color. Within hours,
the
the
line.
wind
Do not let
speeds
it
became
break.
unlike anything the Mongol sailors had ever recorded.
Hold the line.
What started
Secure
as
the
a
rigging.
strong gale became a
We are losing
typhoon
the
of
anchors. Cut them
catastrophic
loose.
strength. The Mongol commanders had made one fatal decision weeks earlier to lash their ships together side by side to create a stable defensive platform against samurai night raids. Now that decision became a death sentence. As the storm tore through the fleet, the lashed ships couldn't move independently. They crashed into each other. They dragged each other under. Wood splintered, hulls flooded. Thousands of men were thrown into violent, churning water in complete darkness. By dawn, an estimated 80% of the entire invasion fleet was gone. Wreckage and bodies washed onto the beaches for days. The samurai
Days
who
after
had
the
held
storm,
that wall for
wreckage and
7
remains
brutal
continue
weeks
washing
now
ashore.
walked the shoreline, finishing what the storm had started. The greatest invasion force in the world had been broken, not by an army,
divine
but by a
wind,
single
the
night
Kamikaze,
of wind and
has
water.
wiped out the invasion fleet.
Word of what
It is a
happened at
miracle.
Hakata Bay
We are
spread
saved.
across Japan
Look,
within
the
weeks.
storms are
2
gone.
invasions,
It is a
2
divine
massive
wind,
storms,
truly.
both arriving at the exact moment Japan needed the most. To the Japanese,
This
there was
is
only
the
one
Kamikaze.
explanation. The gods themselves had
divine
intervened to
wind
protect their sacred
protects
land.
us.
They gave this force
Kamikaze,
a name,
divine
Kamikaze,
wind.
divine
A
wind.
divine wind.
For nearly 700 years,
The legend
Kamikaze
says-
remained part legend,
The
part
legend of the
history,
Kamikaze
a
lived
story
on,
told in
etched in
temples
stone
and
and ink
textbooks,
across
but
centuries.
never
A
proven
story
with
kept
hard,
alive, yet
physical
unproven.
evidence.
We'll start the first core
That
right at the
changed
shoreline.
in
Secure the base
2014.
plate.
A team of geologists, led by
Ready when you are.
researcher John Woodruff, drilled into lake sediment near Hakata Bay. Layered deep in the earth, they found the unmistakable signatures of 2
here, clear
massive
evidence of the
coastal storm
And the
events,
dating matches.
dated with remarkable precision to exactly
1274.
1274 and 1281. The legend was real. The storms had actually happened exactly when history
This core
said they
confirms the
did.
typhoon's fury
But
in
the story
13th century.
of the divine
But the
wind
story of the divine
didn't
wind,
end in the
as they called
13th
it,
century.
was far from over.
Nearly 700 years later, in the final desperate months of World War II, a new generation of Japanese pilots strapped themselves into aircraft loaded with explosives, with no intention of returning. They called themselves by the same name history had given those ancient storms, Kamikaze. They believed, as their ancestors once had, that they too carried a kind of divine purpose, that they too could become the wind that saved Japan. The weapons had changed completely, the century had changed completely, but the myth, the belief that Japan itself was protected by something greater than human strength, had survived unbroken for nearly 700 years. 2 storms 13 years apart, one island nation that by every military logic of its time should not have
The strategy
survived.
along the coast was precise,
Historians
minimizing
still
landing
debate
points.
how much of
Agreed,
Japan's
but the
survival
sheer
came
luck of
down
the
to
storm arriving
skill,
when for those who lived it,
strategy,
there
and
was
that
no
20-kilometer wall, and how much came down to pure catastrophic luck. But for the people who lived through it, there was no debate at all.